On my wedding night, I slipped under the bed to pull a prank on my husband. But someone else came into the room and put her phone on speaker. What I heard after that turned my blood to ice. The day I turned 18, the man who raised me threw a $20 bill in my face. He told me he was done paying for another man's mistake, that I was finally out. What he didn't know, he was just handing me the keys to everything. It was March 15th, my 18th birthday, and the kitchen in our Evergreen Ridge home felt heavy with silence. Brenda was at the counter, scrolling on her phone. My younger brother, Leo, shoveled cereal, eyes glued to his iPad. Neither looked up. No happy birthday. No cake. Nothing. Graham, the man who'd raised me, sat at the head of the table, burying his face in the Phoenix Post. His jaw was tight, shoulders rigid. He'd been waiting for this moment for years. To understand how we got here, I need to take you back a decade, to when I was 8. It was the spring recital at Greenwood Terrace Elementary. I'd practiced my piece for months, every note memorized. My mother, Sarah, sat in the front row, recording me in her favorite blue dress. The seat beside her, though? Empty. Graham had a last-minute meeting, she said. But even then, I knew he never had last-minute meetings when Leo had a soccer game. He attended every single one of Leo's matches, even when my 4-year-old brother just picked dandelions. After the recital, I found Mom. Her eyes were red, but she smiled, telling me I was wonderful. Why doesn't Daddy ever come to my things? I asked. She didn't answer, just hugged me tighter than usual. That night, I couldn't sleep. Creeping downstairs for water, I heard voices from the kitchen. Graham and Mom. I told you I can't pretend forever, Graham said, his voice low. Every time I look at her, I see the mistake you made. Mom whispered, she's a child, Graham. She's innocent. But he snapped back, she's not my child. She never was. The day she turns 18, she's out of this house. I didn't understand the word mistake back then, or why Graham looked at me differently than Leo. But I understood one thing. Whatever was wrong with me, it made my mother cry. I went back to bed, no water, and started counting. Not days until I could leave, but days until I could finally understand why I was never enough. The disparity wasn't just emotional. It was financial. By 16, I had proof. Junior year, September. SAT registration was due, $200 for the test and prep books. I found Graham in his home office. I need money for the SAT, I said, straight to the point. He preferred efficiency over pleasantries. He didn't even look up. Get a job. I tried to explain the 2-week deadline, but he cut me off. Leo needs new soccer cleats. The good ones are $350. I can't be throwing money at everyone. $350 for cleats for a 14-year-old who'd outgrow them in 6 months was fine, but $200 for my college entrance exam was throwing money? I got a minimum wage job at a coffee shop called The Daily Grind, 15 hours a week. It took 3 months to save for the SAT and books. I even covered my own phone bill because Graham cut me off the family plan when I turned 15. Leo, meanwhile, got a new iPhone every September. No questions asked. When my SAT scores came back, 1480 out of 1600, 96th percentile, I left the report on the kitchen counter. No one mentioned it. Not Graham, not Brenda, not even Leo. Mom would have been proud. She'd been gone 4 years by then, taken by breast cancer when I was 12. But I liked to think she was watching. I never asked Graham for money again. If I had to build my future alone, I would. But I also kept a silent record of every disparity, every slight, every dollar that went to Leo instead of me. I didn't know it then, but that record would become important later. My mother died on a Tuesday in November. She was 41. I was 12. 3 days before she passed, Mom asked the nurses for privacy. Weak, her voice barely a whisper, her grip on my hand was surprisingly strong. There's a letter, she said, in my jewelry box, the one with the roses on the lid. Don't open it until you're 16. Promise me, Alara. 16. Why 16? I asked. Because you'll be old enough to understand. Strong enough to handle it. I promised. I would have agreed to anything. She died 3 days later, me holding her hand, Graham standing in the doorway, checking his watch. 11 months after the funeral, Graham married Brenda, a real estate agent he'd met at a company event. Blonde, polished, eager to play Mrs. Mercer. Her first act as stepmother was to reorganize. Mom's clothes went to donation, books to storage. The jewelry box almost went to the attic, but I grabbed it first. "That's mine," I said, clutching it. Brenda looked at Graham. He shrugged. "Let her keep it. It's just junk." I hid the box in the back of my closet and waited for years. That's how long I kept my promise. I had no idea that one letter would change everything. On my 16th birthday, a Saturday, I sat on my bed, the rose-covered box in my lap. Brenda had taken Leo to a travel soccer tournament in Sedona. Graham was at the Desert Canyon Golf Club. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Tucked beneath a strand of pearls was an envelope. My name was written on the front in Mom's familiar handwriting, Alara. The letter was 3 pages, dated August 15, 2019, 2 months before her diagnosis. I read it twice before the words truly sank in. "My darling Alara, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're old enough to know the truth. Graham is not your biological father. Before I married him, I had a brief relationship with a man named Arthur Thorne. It ended when he got engaged to someone else. I didn't know I was pregnant until after he was gone. Graham was pursuing me at the time, and I made a decision I've regretted ever since. I married him and let him believe you were his. He found out when you were 3. He discovered a DNA test I'd hidden. He's known the truth for 15 years, Alara. He chose to stay silent because he didn't want the embarrassment. I'm sorry I never told you. I was afraid of losing you, but you deserve to know who you are. Arthur never knew about you. This letter has been notarized and filed with my attorney, Vivian Croft, at Croft and Associates. She has instructions to help you if you ever need it. You are not a mistake, Alara. You are the best thing I ever did. And your real father deserves to know you exist. All my love forever, Mom." I sat there for an hour rereading it. Everything finally made sense, and nothing would ever be the same. That night, I typed Arthur Thorne Phoenix into Google. The results were overwhelming. CEO and co-founder of Thorne Capital Partners, a private equity fund specializing in commercial real estate, with $2.3 billion in assets. Billion with a B. There were photos, a tall man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, the same shade as mine. Tailored suits, podiums, shaking hands with governors. But the detail that stopped my heart was in a Phoenix Business Review article. Thorne Capital continued to dominate, outbidding smaller competitors, like Thorne and Finch Acquisitions. I almost laughed. The company Graham worked for had Thorne in its name because Arthur had been a co-founder 20 years ago. They'd split. Arthur built an empire, while Graham remained a vice president at the firm they started together. Graham hated Arthur Thorne. I'd heard him complain about that arrogant bastard, blaming Arthur for every lost deal. Now I knew why Graham looked at me with such contempt. Every time he saw my face, he saw the man who'd beaten him at everything business and, apparently, my mother's heart. The question was simple. Did Arthur Thorne want to know I existed? I waited 6 months. I needed to be strategic. In September of my senior year, I wrote a physical letter to Thorne Capital Partners headquarters in downtown Phoenix. I included a copy of Mom's letter and a simple request, an independent DNA test. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I checked the mailbox daily, stomach churning. On day 18, a response arrived. Not from Arthur, but his attorney. Brief, professional. Mr. Thorne was willing to undergo DNA testing at Clarity Genetics Labs. An appointment was set for October 15th. The test took 5 minutes, a cheek swab, some paperwork, results in 2 weeks. On November 8th, the report arrived. Case number GT 2023, 11:08 a.m. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number, Phoenix area code. Alara. The voice was deep measured. This is Arthur Thorne. I just received the results. My throat closed. I couldn't speak. I didn't know about you, he continued. Your mother never told me. But now that I know, I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that. I believed him. Back to my 18th birthday. I'd showered, dressed, and come downstairs. I poured orange juice and glanced out the window. There it was, a black Mercedes S-Class, parked at the corner, just visible through the oak branches. Arthur was waiting. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than paper should. Inside, the DNA results, Mom's letter, and a photo of Arthur and me taken 2 months ago at a coffee shop downtown, our first meeting. I took a slow breath. Whatever happened next, I was ready. Graham folded his newspaper. Looked at me. For the first time that morning. "We need to talk," he said. He pulled a $20 bill from his wallet. He didn't hand it to me, he threw it. It landed on the table next to my untouched orange juice. "You're 18 now," he said. "I'm done." I stared at the 20. Andrew Jackson's face looked back indifferent. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." His voice was flat, rehearsed. He'd practiced this speech. I fulfilled my legal obligation. "You're an adult. Get out." Brenda set down her phone. "Graham, maybe we should stay out of this." He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on mine, filled with 18 years of resentment. "I've known since you were 3 years old. You're not my daughter. I only kept you around because your mother begged me, and I didn't want people asking questions." Leo finally looked up from his iPad, mouth open, cereal forgotten. "But Sarah's gone now," Graham continued. "And I'm not paying for another man's mistake anymore." Another man's mistake. The same words I'd overheard when I was 8. I picked up the $20 bill slowly, deliberately. I didn't want him to see my hands shake. "You think this is an insult?" I said. "It's more than you deserve." I almost smiled. "I know," I continued. "I've known for 2 years." His expression flickered, confusion, then suspicion. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and placed it directly in front of him. "Open it." He hesitated, then tore it open. I watched his face as he read the DNA results, as he recognized Mom's handwriting on the letter, as the color drained from his cheeks. "And my real father," I said, "is waiting outside." Graham's head snapped toward the window. The black Mercedes. The driver's door opening. A tall man with silver hair stepping onto the sidewalk. Arthur Thorne. Graham's face went gray. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." I watched Graham watch Arthur. The man who had tormented me for 18 years, who had made me feel worthless, unwanted, invisible, was frozen. His hand gripped the DNA report so tightly the paper crumpled. Arthur walked up our driveway with the unhurried confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. He wore a charcoal overcoat, leather gloves, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the March wind. "That's impossible," Graham breathed. "You and him." "Sarah," he couldn't finish. "Before you," I said. "Before she ever knew you existed." Brenda had gone pale, looking between Graham and the window, trying to piece it together. Leo had abandoned his iPad, teenage apathy replaced by wide-eyed shock. "You planned this," Graham's voice cracked. "You've been planning this for 2 years." I confirmed. "Ever since I found Mom's letter. Ever since I learned you knew the truth and punished me for it anyway." The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. It rang again. "I'll get it," I said. I walked to the door, heart pounding, but my steps steady. I could feel Graham's eyes burning into my back, hear Brenda whispering something frantic. I opened the door. Arthur Thorne stood on the porch, his blue eyes, my eyes, meeting mine. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." I turned back to look at Graham one last time. He was still standing at the kitchen table, the $20 bill forgotten on the floor. "Goodbye, Graham." Arthur didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped past me into the foyer, his presence filling the space in a way Graham never could. "Graham." Arthur's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "It's been a while." Graham found his footing. "Get out of my house. I'm here to collect my daughter. The one you just threw out with a $20 bill." Arthur glanced at the crumpled money. "Generous of you." "She's not your—" Graham stopped. The DNA results were still in his hand, the evidence undeniable. 99.97%, Arthur said. Clarity Genetics Labs doesn't make mistakes. Neither did Sarah, apparently, when she chose not to tell me. Brenda finally spoke. "Graham, who is this man?" "Arthur Thorne." Graham spat the name like poison. My former business partner. The one who's been sabotaging my deals for years. Sabotaging. Arthur raised an eyebrow. I believe the word you're looking for is outperforming. There's a difference. I stood by the door, watching. Part of me wanted to intervene, but a larger part knew this moment wasn't about me. It was about Graham facing the consequences of his cruelty. You think you've won something? Graham stepped closer to Arthur, fists clenched. Taking her doesn't change anything. She's still Sarah's mistake. That's my daughter you're talking about. Arthur's voice dropped, losing its pleasant veneer. And I've spent the last 6 months learning exactly how you've treated her. The words hung in the air. I know about the SAT money you refused, Arthur continued. The phone plan you cut. The trust fund you've been draining. All of it. Graham's face went from gray to white. How? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that everything you've done to Alara will have consequences, starting today. Arthur produced a manila folder from his coat and set it on the kitchen counter in front of Brenda, who flinched. Sarah left Alara a trust fund, Arthur said. $180,000 to be managed by her legal guardian until she turned 18. He flipped open the folder. That guardian was you, Graham. Graham's jaw tightened. I had every right to access those funds. Raising a child is expensive. Is it? Arthur pulled out a spreadsheet, bank statements highlighted. According to these records, you withdrew $47,000 over the past 5 years for child-rearing expenses. He looked at me. Alara, did Graham pay for your SAT registration? No, your phone bill. No school supplies? Clothes? Extracurriculars. I paid for everything myself, working at a coffee shop. Arthur turned back to Graham. So, where did $47,000 go? Silence. Brenda's eyes darted to the spreadsheet. I saw her expression shift, not guilt, but recognition. She knew where that money went. Leo's soccer camps, his private coaching, his endless parade of new electronics. That's embezzlement, Arthur said quietly. Under Arizona law, a trustee who misappropriates funds can be held personally liable, plus interest, plus legal fees. You can't prove I already have. Arthur tapped the folder. My attorney, Vivian Croft, has been reviewing these records for months. The same Vivian Croft your wife, Sarah, hired to protect Alara's interests before she died. Graham looked like he might be sick. We'll discuss this more after the gala, Arthur said. One more thing. Arthur pulled a second document from the folder, a printed email, headers, and timestamps complete. Graham's face went from white to green. September 12, 2018, Arthur read aloud. From Graham Mercer, Thorne and Finch, to your personal attorney. Subject, inheritance issue. Confidential. I need to know my options for minimizing inheritance obligations to a child who is not biologically mine. Specifically, can I exclude her from my will without disclosing the reason? And what happens to her mother's trust fund if the child is removed from the household before age 18? Brenda gasped. Even Leo looked disturbed. Where did you get that? Graham's voice was barely a whisper. Your company's IT department isn't as loyal as you think, Arthur said. Especially when they're offered better opportunities elsewhere. I hadn't known about this email. Arthur had mentioned gathering evidence, but I didn't realize how deep he dug. You've been planning to cut me out since I was 12, I said. The words came out steady, factual. Before Mom even died. Graham couldn't meet my eyes. The gala is in 1 week, Arthur said, tucking the documents back into the folder. I suggest you spend that time consulting with your lawyer. Because after Saturday night, everyone in Phoenix's business community will know exactly what kind of man you are. He extended his hand to me. Alara, let's go. I took one last look at the kitchen, at Brenda's frozen expression, Leo's confusion, Graham's crumbling composure. Then I walked out the door with my father. My real father. The story was just getting started. Graham threw me out thinking he'd won, but he had no idea who my real father was. And the best part? It was still coming. In 1 week, everyone Graham spent his whole life trying to impress would learn the truth. I should have known Graham wouldn't go quietly. The week after my birthday, I moved into a guest apartment in Arthur's downtown high-rise. Sleek, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was temporary, just until college, but it felt like a different planet. For the first few days, I let myself breathe. I unpacked, explored the neighborhood. I had dinner with Arthur twice, awkward, but genuine conversations as we tried to fill 18 years of silence. Then the attacks began. On Tuesday, March 18th, I got a call from my high school principal. Graham had contacted her, claiming I was emotionally unstable and fabricating stories, suggesting I needed a psychological evaluation before graduation. The principal, thankfully, knew me well enough to be skeptical, but the call shook me. On Thursday, an email arrived from Arizona State University admissions. Clarification needed. Concerns about my financial aid, family situation, guardianship status. Deadline, April 1st. I stared at it for 10 minutes before calling Arthur. He's trying to destroy my future, I said. He can't hurt me directly anymore, so he's going after everything I've built. Arthur was quiet. Vivian Croft will handle the university and the principal. Graham is digging his own grave. He just doesn't know it yet. What do you mean? The gala is Saturday. He'll be there to accept his award. And so will we. I didn't understand yet, but I would. Graham wasn't just going to lose. He was going to lose in front of everyone who mattered to him. The 15th Annual Phoenix Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala was the social event of the spring season. Arthur explained it over dinner Friday night, the eve of the event. For 100 guests, he said, cutting into a steak. Business leaders, investors, city officials, everyone who matters in Phoenix's commercial real estate world will be there. And Graham? He's being honored as Developer of the Year. Arthur's smile was thin. An award he's been campaigning for since 2019. It's the validation he's always wanted. Proof he belongs among the city's elite. I pushed my salad around my plate. So, we're going to take that away from him? No, Arthur said, setting down his knife and fork. We're going to let him take it away from himself. All we have to do is show up. The gala was at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, in the Grand Ballroom. Black tie champagne, a silent auction benefiting children's literacy programs. Arthur Thorne was the primary sponsor, donating $500,000. As lead sponsor, I give the opening remarks, he explained. About 10 minutes on stage before they start handing out awards. What are you going to say? I asked. He reached across the table, squeezed my hand. The truth. That's all. Just the truth. I thought about Graham, probably at home, rehearsing his acceptance speech, imagining the applause, the photos in the Phoenix Business Review. He had no idea what was coming. What should I wear? I asked. Arthur smiled, a real smile this time, warm and paternal. I had something delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Consider it a birthday gift. Saturday, March 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The navy blue gown fit perfectly, floor-length silk, modest neckline, elegant without being flashy. Arthur had chosen well. We arrived at the Ritz-Carlton together, his hand steady on my elbow. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, well-dressed couples mingling, laughter echoing. I'd never been to anything like this. My world had been coffee shops and high school hallways, not ballrooms and champagne flutes. But I kept my chin up, shoulders back, channeling every ounce of composure I'd developed surviving Graham's household. We entered the ballroom at 7:04 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone, wanting to remember every detail. The room was stunning. And there, near the bar, stood Graham. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Brenda was beside him in a red dress, laughing at something an investor said. Graham held a champagne flute, gesturing expansively as he told some story. Then he saw me. The flute froze halfway to his lips. His eyes moved from my face to Arthur, then back to me. I watched the color drain from his cheeks in real time. He excused himself and strode toward us, his expression murderous. What the hell are you doing here? I was invited, I said calmly. My father is the lead sponsor. Several heads turned at the word father. Phones appeared. Someone whispered. Graham's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. He'd never been good at controlling his temper, especially after a few drinks. Your father. He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Arthur Thorne is not your father. He's a con artist using you to get at me. The people around us had stopped pretending not to listen. A circle formed, drawn by the promise of drama. Brenda appeared at his elbow, her face tight with alarm. "Not here, please." He shook her off. "No, everyone needs to know what's happening here." He pointed at me, his finger trembling with rage. "This girl is not my daughter. She's the product of my late wife's incident. A bastard I was forced to raise for 18 years. Gasps. Murmurs. I saw at least 3 phones rise, cameras pointed. I gave her a roof over her head. Graham continued, his voice rising. I fed her. I clothed her. And this is how she repays me? By showing up here with him. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Graham was doing all the work himself. She's a liar and a manipulator, just like her mother was. Sarah fooled me for years. And now her daughter is trying to do the same thing. Don't believe a word she says. The ballroom had gone quiet. Even the string quartet had stopped. I felt Arthur's hand on my shoulder, steady, reassuring. Are you finished? I asked Graham. His face was red now, veins visible at his temples. I'm just getting started. You think you can ruin me? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. I looked at him, really looked at him, for what might be the last time. I don't need to ruin you, Graham. You're doing that yourself. From the corner of my eye, I saw Arthur walking toward the stage. It was time. The MC tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. It's time to begin our program. Please welcome our lead sponsor and keynote speaker, Mr. Arthur Thorne. Applause filled the ballroom. Arthur climbed the steps to the stage with the easy confidence of a man who'd addressed thousands. He shook the MC's hand, adjusted the microphone, and smiled out at the crowd. Thank you all for being here tonight. He began. The Phoenix Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala has raised over $12 million for children's literacy programs over the past 15 years. That's something we should all be proud of. More applause. Graham had retreated to his table, face still flushed, Brenda whispering urgently in his ear. Tonight, I want to talk about something personal, Arthur continued. About family. About the choices we make and the consequences that follow. A ripple of curiosity passed through the crowd. This wasn't a typical sponsor speech. 20 years ago, I made a choice I've regretted ever since. I walked away from someone I cared about because I thought I had better options. I didn't know then that she was carrying my child. The whispers intensified. Heads turned, searching for context. 6 months ago, I received a letter from a remarkable young woman. She had spent 2 years researching her own history, gathering evidence, building a case. She did this not for revenge, but for truth. For the right to know where she came from. Arthur looked directly at me. That young woman is here tonight. And I'd like to introduce her to you. Not as a secret. Not as a scandal. But as my daughter. He extended his hand toward me. Alara, would you join me on stage? The walk to the stage felt like an hour. 400 faces watched. 400 pairs of eyes tracked my every step. I heard whispers. Thorne's daughter? Who is she? Did he say 18 years? I climbed the stairs and took Arthur's hand. He pulled me gently to his side, facing the crowd. This is Alara Hayes, he said into the microphone. Or as I hope she'll allow me to call her someday, Alara Thorne. My daughter. The applause started slowly, then built. Not everyone clapped. Some were too stunned, others too busy processing. But enough did that the sound filled the room. Alara spent 18 years in a household that didn't want her, Arthur continued. She was told she was a mistake. She was denied basic support while her stepbrother received everything. She paid for her own SAT registration by working at a coffee shop because the man who was supposed to be her guardian refused to give her $200. I saw Graham's table. His face was ashen. Brenda had her hand over her mouth. The other guests were leaning away, as if Graham's disgrace might be contagious. Despite all of that, Arthur said, Alara graduated with a 3.9 GPA. She scored in the 96th percentile on her SATs. She earned a partial scholarship to Arizona State University. She did all of this alone. Without help. Without support. Without anyone telling her she was worthy. He turned to me, his eyes glistening. I missed 18 years of your life, Alara. I can't get those back. But I can promise you this. From today forward, you will never be alone again. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. I just nodded and squeezed his hand. The applause was deafening. Arthur gestured toward the side of the stage where Vivian Croft, in a tailored gray suit, stood waiting. For those who might question the validity of what I've shared, allow me to introduce Vivian Croft, senior partner at Croft and Associates. Ms. Croft has been the custodian of the documentation that proves Alara's parentage. Vivian stepped forward, her presence commanding respect. She was in her late 40s, with sharp features and the composed demeanor of someone who had spent decades in courtrooms. "Good evening," she said into the microphone. "I have in my possession the following documents. First, a notarized letter written by Sarah Hayes Mercer on August 15, 2019, attesting to Arthur Thorne's biological paternity of her daughter, Alara. Second, DNA test results from Clarity Genetics Labs, dated November 8, 2023, confirming a 99.97% probability of paternal match between Mr. Thorne and Ms. Hayes." She held up a folder. The same folder Arthur had shown Graham a week ago. "These documents have been authenticated and are available for legal review. There is no ambiguity here. Alara Hayes is Arthur Thorne's biological daughter." The room buzzed. I saw a reporter from the Phoenix Business Review scribbling furiously. Phones were out everywhere. Graham's table had become an island of silence. The other guests had physically shifted their chairs away. No one wanted to be associated with what was unfolding. "One more thing," Vivian added. "I am also in possession of financial records indicating that Graham Mercer, as trustee of Alara's inheritance from her late mother, withdrew $47,000 from her trust fund over a 5-year period. Legal proceedings to recover those funds will begin Monday morning." Graham stood abruptly, knocking over his champagne glass. He didn't say a word. He just walked out. He didn't get far. He made it about 10 steps toward the exit before someone called out, "Running away, Mercer?" He stopped, turned. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "This is a setup," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Arthur has been trying to destroy me for 20 years. He's using that girl to finish the job." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people looked at Arthur, then at me, then back at Graham. "The DNA test is fake," Graham continued, striding back toward the stage. "The documents are forged. This is all a lie designed to humiliate me." Arthur didn't flinch. Clarity Genetics Labs is one of the most respected facilities in the country. Their results have been used in thousands of legal proceedings. Are you suggesting they're part of my conspiracy? I'm suggesting you paid them off. And the letter from Sarah, your own wife, is that forged too? Graham's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. "You called my daughter a bastard in front of 50 witnesses, Arthur said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "You admitted publicly that you knew she wasn't your biological child and that you resented her for it. You did that before I said a single word." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Everything that's happening to you tonight, Graham, you brought on yourself." Someone in the crowd shouted, "What about the trust fund money?" Graham's face went pale. "That's a private matter." $47,000, another voice called out. "From a child's inheritance. That's theft." The crowd was turning. I could feel it. The collective judgment shifting. The social tide pulling away from Graham and toward us. Brenda appeared at his side, tugging his arm. "Graham, we need to leave now." This time, he didn't argue. They fled through the side door, leaving their table empty. The Monday after the gala, Vivian Croft filed suit in Phoenix County Court. Plaintiff Alara Hayes. Defendant Graham Mercer. The complaint was straightforward: breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of trust funds, and failure to properly manage assets held for a minor beneficiary. We were seeking full recovery of the $47,000 Graham had withdrawn, plus interest, plus attorney's fees. "The evidence is overwhelming," Vivian told me during our meeting. Her office on the 17th floor of a downtown high-rise had views of Camelback Mountain. Bank statements, withdrawal records, signed authorizations, all in Graham's name. "And we have your testimony about what you actually received?" "Nothing." "What happens now?" Graham has 30 days to respond. He can settle or he can fight. But fighting means discovery. And discovery means we get access to all his financial records. She smiled slightly. I don't think he wants that. I thought about the email Arthur had shown me. If that existed, what else was hidden in his files? There's something else, Vivian continued. The university situation has been resolved. I spoke with the admissions office this morning. They've reviewed the concerns Graham raised and found them baseless. Your enrollment is confirmed. Relief washed over me. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You built an impeccable record despite everything working against you. Graham's accusations only made him look petty and vindictive. I left Vivian's office feeling lighter than I had in years. The legal process would take time, months probably, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Graham had spent 18 years making me feel powerless. That was over now. Graham's lawyer called Vivian on April 10th, 3 weeks after the lawsuit. They want to settle, Vivian told me over the phone. Full repayment of the $47,000, plus $8,500 in accrued interest, plus our legal fees, $12,000. They're also agreeing to transfer the remaining balance of your mother's trust fund immediately. I did the math. Over $200,000 total. $200,500 to be precise. And they're not contesting anything? No discovery, no depositions, no trial. Why, she explained, because Graham can't afford the scrutiny. The gala was a disaster for him, professionally and personally. His partners at Thorne and Finch have been distancing themselves ever since. A prolonged legal battle would only make things worse. The settlement was signed on April 15th, exactly 1 month after my 18th birthday. I didn't attend the signing. I didn't need to see Graham's face as he wrote the check. I didn't need his apology, which, according to Vivian, he didn't offer anyway. What I needed was closure, and that's what I got. The money was deposited into my account 3 days later. I stared at the balance on my phone screen for a long time. $200,500. It wasn't about the money, really. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, being told finally that what happened to me was wrong. Graham had spent 18 years treating me like I was worthless. Now he had paid, literally, for that mistake. Arthur took me to dinner the night the settlement money arrived. A quiet Italian restaurant in Old Town Scottsdale, white tablecloths, candles flickering. I want to pay for your college, he said after we'd ordered. All of it. Tuition, housing, books. Everything. I set down my water glass. I appreciate that, but no. He looked surprised. Why not? Because I've spent 18 years proving I don't need anyone. I'm not going to start depending on someone now, even you. Alara, I'm your father. It's not dependence. It's family. I know. I reached across the table and touched his hand. And I'm grateful you're in my life. But I need to do this myself. The trust fund money, my scholarship, that's enough. More than enough. Arthur was quiet for a moment. I could see him wrestling with it, the instinct to provide battling against the recognition that I needed autonomy. Your mother raised you well, he finally said. She did. Okay. He squeezed my hand. But if you ever need anything at all, I'm here. No strings attached. I know. We finished dinner talking about his business, my plans for college, the apartment I was looking at near campus. Normal father-to-daughter conversation, or at least what I imagined it might sound like. I didn't need Arthur's money to prove I was worthy. I had already proven that, every single day for 18 years. The fallout for Graham was swift and brutal. It started the night of the gala when the Chamber of Commerce quietly withdrew his Developer of the Year nomination. No announcement, no explanation, just a brief email to attendees the next morning. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the award will not be presented this year. But that was just the beginning. On April 10th, the same day his lawyer called to negotiate the settlement, Onyx Holdings Group pulled out of a $12 million joint development project that had been in the works for 18 months. According to an email Graham received, which somehow found its way to the Phoenix Business Review, the Onyx CEO wrote, "We cannot associate our brand with individuals whose personal conduct raises questions about ethical judgment." The article ran on April 5th under the headline, Family scandal casts shadow over former Thorne and Finch executive because by then, Graham was already gone. The board of directors at Thorne and Finch Acquisitions held an emergency meeting on May 1st. I wasn't there, obviously, but Arthur had sources. The vote was unanimous. Graham would resign immediately, with a modest severance and a strict non-disclosure agreement. The official press release cited personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. No one believed it. Within 2 months, Graham Mercer had lost his award, his biggest deal, and his career. The house in Evergreen Ridge went on the market in June. Brenda apparently decided that staying in a neighborhood where everyone knew their business was unbearable. I didn't feel joy at Graham's downfall. I didn't feel vindication or triumph. What I felt was something quieter, something like peace. For 18 years, Graham had held power over me. He controlled where I lived, what I ate, whether I felt welcome. He had made me feel small and worthless and invisible. Now, the world could see who he really was. And I was finally free. Brenda and Leo were collateral damage in Graham's implosion. I didn't plan it that way, but I couldn't pretend I hadn't anticipated it. Brenda disappeared from social media within a week of the gala. Her Instagram, where she'd posted curated photos of her perfect family, went private, then vanished. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd stopped attending her book club, tennis lessons, charity committee meetings. I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd watched Graham treat me like garbage for 6 years and never said a word. Her silence made her complicit. Leo was different. He was 14, old enough to understand, but young enough that I couldn't hold him fully responsible. He'd grown up believing the narrative Graham fed him, that I was the outsider, the problem. 3 months after the gala, I received a text from an unknown number. "Alara, it's Leo. Got your number from Mom's phone. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad things were for you. I should have paid attention. I should have said something." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to tell him it was okay, to rebuild. But another part, the part that had spent 18 years being invisible, needed more time. I typed back, "Thank you for reaching out. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate you saying this." He replied, "I understand. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready." I saved his number, but didn't add him to my contacts. Maybe someday, but not today. In August, I moved to Phoenix. My apartment was small, a 1-bedroom near campus, with a view of Camelback Mountain from the kitchen window. I furnished it with secondhand finds. It was perfect. The trust fund money sat in a savings account, earning modest interest. I used it for tuition and rent, careful to budget so it would last all 4 years. My scholarship covered the rest. I didn't touch a penny of Arthur's money. I didn't need to. Classes started the last week of August. I enrolled as a business major with a minor in communications. My professors were demanding, my course load heavy, but I thrived in ways I never had in high school. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who didn't know my history, who judged me only by what I showed them. I got a part-time job at a small real estate firm downtown, not Arthur's company, not anything connected to Graham, just a local agency that needed someone to answer phones. The pay was modest, but the experience was invaluable. Arthur visited once a month, always on a Sunday. We'd have brunch on Mill Avenue, talking about classes and work, the slow process of getting to know each other. He never pushed. He never tried to buy my affection. He just showed up, consistently, the way a father should. By October, I'd made friends. By November, I'd started dating a guy from my economics class, Caleb, an Arizona native with an easy laugh and zero knowledge of my complicated past. I didn't tell him about Graham or the gala or the lawsuit. Not yet. That story belonged to my past, and I was building something new. For the first time in 18 years, I woke up every morning without dread. I woke up with hope. 6 months after the gala, Graham sent me an email. I almost deleted it without reading. His name in my inbox felt like a violation. But curiosity won out. "Alara, I know I have no right to contact you, but I've had time to think about what happened, and I realize I owe you an explanation. Maybe even an apology. I'd like to talk, if you're willing. Graham. No, dear. No, sincerely. No acknowledgement of the specific harm. Just a vague gesture toward reconciliation, as if 18 years of cruelty could be erased with a single email. I didn't respond directly. Instead, I called Vivian Croft. I want to send him a message through your office, I said. Something official. Something final. She understood immediately. The letter was sent 3 days later, on Croft and Associates letterhead. Mr. Mercer, Ms. Hayes has received your communication dated September 22nd. She has asked me to convey the following response. You had 18 years to treat me with basic human decency. You chose not to. You knew the truth about my parentage and used it as justification for neglect and emotional mistreatment. You stole from my inheritance. You attempted to sabotage my education and my future. I am not interested in your explanations or your apologies. I do not wish to have any further contact with you. This is not revenge. This is a boundary. Please do not attempt to reach me again. Alara Hayes. Graham never responded. I don't know if he was angry, hurt, or relieved. I didn't care. Some people deserve second chances. Graham wasn't one of them. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back into your life to harm you again. Sometimes forgiveness just means letting go and walking away. Building a relationship with Arthur was like learning a new language. We had the basics, shared DNA, shared features, a shared desire to connect. But fluency would take years. Our monthly brunches became a ritual. He'd drive down from Phoenix on Sunday mornings, always arriving at exactly 10 a.m. We'd order the same things: avocado toast for me, eggs Benedict for him, and talk about everything and nothing. Some days were easy. We'd discuss his latest business deal or my upcoming exams, laughing at bad jokes, discovering shared interests. He loved jazz. So did I. He hated cilantro. So did I. Small things, but they added up. Other days were harder. There were silences that stretched too long. Questions that had no good answers. How do you summarize 18 years of absence? How do you grieve a relationship that never existed? I'm not trying to replace the time we lost, Arthur told me once, stirring his coffee. I know that's impossible. I just want to be here for whatever comes next. That's enough, I said. And I meant it. On my 19th birthday, Arthur drove to Phoenix with a small cake and a card. No extravagant gifts, no grand gestures. Just the two of us in my tiny apartment, eating chocolate cake and watching the sunset paint Camelback Mountain pink and gold. Happy birthday, Alara, he said. Thanks, Dad. It was the first time I'd called him that. His eyes glistened, but he didn't make a big deal of it. Neither did I. Some things don't need words. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never found that letter. If I'd never reached out to Arthur. If I just accepted Graham's $20 and disappeared, another forgotten child of a broken home. But I did find the letter. I did reach out. And everything changed. Here's what I learned from 18 years of being invisible. First, your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Graham saw me as a mistake, a burden, a reminder of his wife's betrayal. But his perception was never my reality. I was always more than what he saw. Second, boundaries are not selfish. They're essential. Cutting Graham out of my life wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. I don't owe anyone access to my peace. Third, family is not just blood. It's the people who show up for you, who choose you, who love you without conditions. Arthur and I share DNA, but what makes him my father is the effort he puts in every single day. I'm a sophomore now, studying business, dreaming of starting my own real estate company someday. Not to compete with Graham or Arthur, just to prove to myself that I can build something from nothing. Because that's what I've always done. If you're watching this and you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or invisible, I see you. Your story isn't over. The people who dismissed you don't get to write your ending. You do. Now, I want to ask you, if you were me, would you have responded to Graham's email?